You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. Den of Ashes, the grandson of 50s-era country and western entertainers John and Texas Peggy Clemens, comes from a long line of western music tradition. For his new CD, California, Ash says, if you skipped the needle forward 50 years, this is what western music would be. In this edition of Americana Music Profiles, we talk to Ash about the history of his grandparents' music, Ash's career, and what his new CD means for Western music. Hi, Ash. Welcome to the podcast. We were talking a little bit offline before we got started, and you've got a pretty good history of music yourself, and you cutting your teeth as a musician, as well as the history from your grandparents, right?
You're absolutely right. And I grew up with the basis of the New York folklore.
Okay.
Well,
yeah,
you're right.
Sure.
Canal, the folk music as well, came out of Woodstock. There was a lot of root stuff happening, obviously, at that point. Then moving to Virginia was, it was a culture shock, obviously, from New York.
I'm sure.
But that music leaves an impression on you, just the same thing as the Fiddlers Convention and Galax.
Yeah.
You get all of the incredible people, and these people just work on the farms all day long. And you get this whole other avenue of music and respect for that. And then you get the influence where Roanoke is in the, Southwest Virginia, even as far as like Harrisonburg. Look, I just saw Bruce Hornsby this past weekend.
Yeah.
He was here, and he's a Tidewater boy.
Right.
And Wayne Pooley's been his engineer. I went to high school with Wayne. And it's just, there is definitely a basis in that music that sticks with you. I thought that was a fantastic place to be. So you're absolutely right. It is a hotbed for people that really want that influence.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I take a look at my grandparents' legacy, and when they were touring, 1930, 39 through the 40s and early 50s. And, they had traveled all 48 states, because obviously Alaska and Hawaii were not states.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah.
And, they had a Packard and they had a vagabond trailer. And I've got a world of archives of their photographs from all of their tours and journeys.
Wow.
And it's like and a lot of the Western, they were much more Western than they were country. But remember, country was focused at that point as well.
Right.
Poor people's music.
Right.
They would tour with everybody had their own tours, but they would definitely sync up. And, my grandparents would share the stage with the Carters, and they were actually, Mother Maybelle was really good friends with my grandmother.
Wow, that's cool.
Text reader with my grandfather.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that whole, just the basis of these entertainment people as a kid.
Right.
When they came off the road, they opened a hotel in upstate New York and catered to all of their touring and entertainment socialite friends. So I got to meet many of them growing up.
Wow, that's cool.
And it was cool when I Johnny Cash, when he was alive, Beck's first album was out, and Beck opened for Johnny Cash at Pet Tages here. And that was before I worked on one of his music videos, but. I brought him the autograph he had signed to my grandmother. He used to stay at my grandparents' hotel.
Wow.
And he says, "Yeah, I remember old Peg," and her name was Texas Peggy, and he re-signed the autograph to me.
Wow, that's cool.
I got to sign this one. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Tom said he was standing next to me, cracking up, and I was like, "Well, what's so funny?" And he said, "Well, you know what? This guy sent." He saw me the very first year I started touring, and then brought the picture I autographed to him, 20 years later. And I said, "Well, I already signed it." He said, "But will you sign it again?" He said he just reminded me of that.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. So, did your experience with your grandparents? Is that what got you into music? Was that kind of the nesting for you at that point?
Well, it was interesting because I was brought up with it, and it was just one of those everyday things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they knew a lot of the entertainment. Yeah, they would see a lot of their friends on Hee Haw, when they came off the road. Remember, they were the first generation, literally.
Yeah.
And then when you start getting into Willie Nelson, which I just saw on Sunday, which was great.
Yeah, that's cool.
And Merle Haggard, all the other guys, those were the next generation.
Yeah.
Now when you're getting into Shooter and, all these, and Waylon's son, Waylon's son and Willie's son, that is the third generation,
right? Yeah,
going in.
Yeah,
and I'm part of that. I'm part of that third generation.
Yeah,
my dad did not survive that world. He died when he was 34.
Oh wow!
So, it's one of those things that I was left a really beautiful legacy, and that's the reason why. Because I have that legacy, that I can go ahead and push to bring back Western. Is Western, Western Americana rock, absolutely, folk rock.
And I was listening to, I had this image in my mind of what Western is, and went and listened to some of the catalog of your new record, which is kind of the point of this conversation. But I in my mind, I'm thinking, I guess I was thinking Western swing, which it clearly isn't. What is it that distinguishes it and makes it feel Western by your definition?
Well, that's a very, very good question, a very easy question to answer. Now, the cadence of Western versus country, is actually, we can talk about country now, which is pop.
Right, right. Not country, yeah.
Yeah, it's the, you can go back in time, and let me kind of explain. If you went back into the California sound of the Eagles,
right,
Jackson Brown,
yeah,
you go in the other. If that came out now, that would be considered much more Western than it was. It's like people have categorized things according to the times when they were out.
Right,
it's obviously classic rock. So Western does have a classic rock feel. It does have a Western West Coast feel. Which it definitely does. It's it's not Appalachian, but you can hear some little influences. Actually, on my first record, there was Misty Morning, which was kind of like a fatal love song.
Yeah, okay.
But you get into, like, for instance, it's not a very snappy tone. There's the homage that people play to Western, the spaghetti Westerns. Let's just talk about that. The Sergio Leone, Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Right.
It's actually funny because my piano player, Alex Alessandrani, his father was the one who played all the guitars and was the whistle in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. So it's like he has a legacy as well, a phenomenal one, and he gravitated towards the style. There's a tonality and mood, and that's one of the most important things, Greg. There's a mood created by it, a story-based mood. You notice it's not a lot of quick picking as it is. It's this tonal range, and it's not trying to be this over-orchestrated North Texas feel. I'm not looking for the influences of Bakersfield. I'm not looking for the influences of North Texas. Certainly not looking for the influences of Nashville. And you start getting into, Western kind of, it's interesting you brought up Western swing, which is pretty cool because Western did come out of that. It was a large orchestrated music genre. Now mine is, you can tell mine's a pretty orchestrated genre. It's a very thick basis of tones on there. It's set up for a 5-piece, but it has a lot to do with the mood, the subject matter, storytelling.
Right.
It has a lot to do with the feel of a little bit of that classic rock and guitar. There's instruments that are very much based in there. Like if you were listening to bluegrass, you'd be expecting to hear, the mandolin,
right,
and a lot of other different things going in. So we're staying within, the pedal steel. By the way, Greg Leitz, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's probably one of the greatest pedal steel players that's ever been.
Cool.
And he was on tour with Jackson Brown. He was in town for 2 days.
Okay.
So grabbed him.
Yeah.
And and it's his natural style. That's the beauty about these people. They've lived out here. They've kind of lived that classic rock and feel like even Neil Young and that's and Neil
Yeah,
Young's player is
okay.
phenomenal. And that's what we're taking from. It's a beautiful cross combination of a couple things. But if you were to listen to it and drive out to the desert and in the Western landscape, you would totally understand and embrace it.
Yeah,
and that's what I get from most of my fans.
Okay.
That's really, and a lot of it is based upon the Western landscape and those thoughts and that solitude.
Thus, the name of the album, California.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's autobiographical. It is about my journey. I did go from New York to Nashville out to L.A. I just happened to do it in a plane.
Right.
Go back 100 years, and it's on a train.
Right. So is this a newer approach for you, or has this been the theme of your music all along for your career?
Well, another great question. And Greg, I wrote late night radio when I was 23.
Wow. Okay.
I was just out of college, and it's one of those things that stuck with me. I remember writing it, and I was in my one room apartment in Richmond, Virginia, and I was like, God, I always tried writing rock, and and kind of being that progressive style. Like you went through different phases in your listening, level. And during the during the 80s and 90s, we were bombarded with a lot of great music.
Oh, right, yeah, one of the best eras, actually, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at that and you try to decipher that. And I went and this was my natural style, and it came so easily to me. It really did. And I was like, this can't be good because this is the stuff I want to play over here. So I ignored. Okay. And I was writing. I wrote some really cool rock songs and other things, but I kept writing myself into a corner. And then finally, I just threw out everything. I did. I was like, okay, because I was working in Hollywood. You probably read about my music video world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah.
So what happened was, that was my ability to stay close to music. But what happened was I realized back then that my music probably would have not have taken. Remember, Americana, for most practical purposes, is only 4 years old in people's minds.
Right. I know. Yeah.
And they, it's like it's been around. You get it because you've seen it and watched it.
Sure.
Coming to there, about 10% of Americana might qualify for being on the Western genre.
Okay.
But also you take a look at Richard Ashcroft from The Verve. If you go in towards some of Richard's new songs, you'd be going like, he's got a Western flair happening.
Yeah, okay.
And even the Western flair from the Yardbirds, "Heart Full of Soul," is a Western riff going right into it. Mm-hmm. So the influence of Western has been, actually has been spread throughout many different genres of music. But getting to the point of this is my natural style. And I want to talk about the guitar I play too, and this will kind of be a prelude to this. My dad, when he died, his most prized possession was his 55 Martins.
Wow!
And I inherited it. That's my guitar, but for me, it was kind of a shrine because I didn't really play it. The only thing I had from him.
Yeah.
And I had my guitars, I had a lot of other ones, and I was like, when I threw everything out, I said, I just really want to just embrace what was coming to me, my natural style. And instead of just playing music, I was composing. And I pulled out that guitar, and the tones on it and everything, something strange happened where all of these images started emerging. And when I would write a kind of skeletal structure of a song. And I said, well, you walk away from it, and then you start letting the lyrics and other things start taking over the melodies, and you write according to those melodies. Everybody has a different approach of writing. The Beatles, for God's sake, they would write the music, the lyrics, and sometimes you have to separate yourself from it, and sometimes you don't, where the lyrics just come right away.
Yeah,
you learn improv, and that's what I creatively did. I just went for it and then let stuff resonate. And I embraced my natural style, and it just kept coming, and it still comes. It just keeps coming. And what I write about when I play this Martin and I write on it, it's my primary writing guitar.
Okay.
I look for those tones and I look for those things that just start engaging